many children? I wanted to give you some time to sit while your legs are fresh and try to utilize the practice. The practice that we are involved in, that is being stressed throughout this retreat, is the awareness of mind. This being aware of mind is the key to meditation. Awareness is not thinking of mind. It is just utilizing the mind in its natural way. In the beginning, hold on. My legs are fresh. Bodhidharma used the system. He went into a cave and he was meditating. And his system was one where he faced the wall of the cave. And just looked at the wall of the cave. This was called wall gazing. So he introduced that to the Chinese as this system of wall gazing. And the wall of the cave is symbolic. It is the wall of mind. And so by wall gazing, there's nothing to see except the wall. But when you're looking at the wall, all you're doing is really looking into mind. And so people, if they just looked at it with their thinking, I am looking at this wall, what would they see? The wall, right? So they just see wall. But with Bodhidharma, he, looking at the wall, his mind was able to detect very subtle movements and appearances in mind, very subtle mental impressions, sensations, all sorts of things that were coming up at that time. And so with this kind of gazing at the wall, the mind became very still, very quiet. He was aware of all of these impressions that were coming up, but he didn't have to rush towards them or do anything. He knew they were just simply projected on the wall of mind. So when we talk about wall gazing from Bodhidharma, it's the same thing as using the awareness of mind that Master Holmgren was talking about. You're using the awareness of mind to see things, but as the mind becomes clearer and clearer, it does something that's very, very interesting, because it enters a state of what they call upika. So the term, I'll spell it right. Upika. And what this means is the mind is in a state of what they call equipoise. Equipoise means that there's nothing that sticks out more than anything else. It goes beyond this idea of substantial and insubstantial in terms of the Chinese doctrine, but it goes more in terms of a balance of everything, seeing things as they are, that if there's something that was projected somewhere else, it's not. And so the mind gets into the state of equipoise where it sees things as they are. It's clear about it. Until I guess we need a black one. But in any case, this idea of upika or equipoise, as you begin to look in your method and you use your method in the right way, what will happen is that these things that appear to be gross sensations or gross images, they'll calm down. And they will no longer stick out very strong in the mind. So when they stick out and very strong in the mind, they will try to push you off of the method. So if you're looking into the mind and I'm tempted to use my own felt pens, but if I do, this will be there forever. Okay. But if let's say this is where you're looking and you have this idea of, I don't think you guys can see this, I'm sorry. This there, the method, and you're looking at it, then let's say you have a money problem. And so the money problem will try to push the method out because the mind is not in a state of equanimity. But when you can just wall gaze, then the mind settles down. And even the method begins to become more and more transparent. Okay. So it becomes transparent. And then you just see things. But what happens as things begin to pop up in the mind, they have an equal value. So you begin to see things, let's say, that are popping up, but they're just passing through. Like a quark, subatomic particle. They're just rising very quickly and going, rising quickly and going. Later on, because your mind is in the state of equipoise, it almost turns into a what do they call those microscopes, subatomic microscopes that you can see deeply in. Then these things even would appear like gross sensations, even though they're very subtle. You get to a more subtle where you can see just literally countless possibilities that are there. What you're really looking at that point, for some of you understand yoga chart schools, you're beginning to see the bija seeds in the alive Vijnana. You're beginning to see the potentiality, not of thought, but of ideas of thought, of the potentiality that's there. You're able to do that because the mind is in a state of equipoise. But you have to put it there by calming down, calming down, calming down, calming down. As you're calming down, then this wall gazing, going back to Bodhidharma, then works. The mind settles down. And you see, so you're no longer seeing the wall of the cave. You're seeing right through the wall of the cave directly into mind, using mind to look at mind. When we do it in the wrong way, we mess it up. So when we have the idea, and now we return this back to the wall of the cave, and if we have this idea, maybe this one's a little bit darker. This is better. All right. That we are here looking at the cave. And if there's appearances on it, what we're doing in actuality have created two obscurations, two obstructions. The first one is all these appearances on the wall of mind or the mirror of mind. But you also have this obstruction, which is this one that is there that appears to be looking, and you're convinced that you are meditating. But if you are meditating in this way, the only way that this can truly be here is if you create the thought that it is meditating. That's why it too is an obscuration, because it's appearing on the wall, but it makes it you convinced that it's actually here. But in reality, this is an obscuration that's here. That's why you can't see the mind clearly, because that's projected onto mind. Okay. Some of you are beginners, but this is good for beginners, honestly, because you don't have to waste all your time trying to perfect yourself. Mine is already perfected. You just have to know how to use it. It's like if somebody showed you, here is a telescope, you can use it. And you're there and you're using it for a while. And they finally say, you know, it looked better if you turn it around to the other side. Well, nobody told me that. But I'm telling you now, turn the telescope around, and then you could see everything so clearly. But we're using the wrong end of it. So when we're doing it and we're saying, stay on the method, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to mine. So mine is gonna be there. That's why I use the analogy, and it's used quite a bit, of like this semicircle, seeing the projection of you, the obscuration, and then all the other projections on the mind, and everything is perfectly in its place. We don't have to make these obscurations disappear. By the nature of it, the mind will see through it as being transparent, because it is just a projection of the mind. Of course, the mind can see through it. It's being projected on mind. So when we see this and we do this in the right way, it works. Now, fast forward about 300 years or so, give or take about maybe 200, and we get to Dao Xin. And Dao Xin says, when you practice, you should practice as if you're looking at the number one. So can you draw the number one in Chinese? I'm sure you can do it. I have utmost confidence in your ability to just draw the number one on here.
Okay. You number one.
All right. That's his method. To contemplate number one. Pretty simple, right? You go, well, what does that mean? No. If you just look in your mind and you're seeing this from a distance, that's all you see. What do you see? Do you see the one? Or do you see infinity or the horizon? You see, this is your method, it's just a placeholder. It's just something there, but it doesn't interfere, it doesn't produce anything, it doesn't give you any secret or whatever. It's just something to hold on to, like wall gazing. So it's just a little bit extra there, but this is how you can meditate. You meditate. Yeah, Jeffrey?
Yeah, I have a question about the method. So like with the wall gazing or the number one or being with the breath, I have an easier time wrapping my head around that because they're somewhat still or constant. What I struggle with is like the counting of breath. Is it even possible to count the breath while staying with the method?
One.
Yeah, you know what I like. In my mind, I actually really struck, like when I've heard other practitioners recommend like your breath, and I feel like that actually just takes me away from being able to be with the method.
You're exactly right. You now can graduate. You ready? Watch the breath. Don't count it. That should be your method now. Don't count it. Just watch it. Did you see that one?
Thank you.
And from there, then you'll segue into sublimation, which has no method. So you're working on the right way. It's a progression. Okay, I get it. Counting the breath. So what? Now watch the breath. But again, you've already figured this out. What am I going to see? Well, it's like the easiest thing you could do, right? So instead of trying to come up with something very, very difficult to do, you know, it's the easiest way to do that. So what I was practicing in Qigong, we used to have a method where sorry, just ignore it. But we had a method where you'd sit like this, and you would follow like a pearl going through your head, all the way to your Dandian. And then you have another one too, so you're visualizing them going through, and then you have to keep the visualization. You're believe me, your mind's going to be occupied. You get up to 9 of these, you know, and then essentially you send it back up in this wonderful display of light. That's Qigong for you. But you'd have to be able to keep your mind here, keep the mind and array these in some way. You can't just dump them in there like a sack of marbles. So you have to figure out how you're going to array them in there in a neat way. You know, so how would you put them in there? You know, you could do 8 and 8, you know, and then one in the middle as a possibility, but you're lining it all up. That's Qigong. In the Chan meditation, we let go of all of that. We let go of all those kind of real strong. The thing about this is, how does that relate to Theravada? It develops concentration, an incredible amount of concentration to be able to do that. And so after a while, when you concentrate your mind on anything, it becomes extremely powerful. But in the Chan, we don't use those kinds of methods of concentration. You have to have the faith to be able to do that. And the effort, the proper effort to do it. A lot of times when we do something, we try to muscle it. So Shakyamuni Buddha created this method of watching the breath. The reason he created that method was because it doesn't create stress in the mind. It doesn't create an excess amount of mental activity. It's the easiest thing that one could do. Whereas in Chan, there is what's called a Huat To practice, which can create stress, but it depends on the person whether you recommend for them to do sun illumination or Huat To. To you, I think you would be fine because of the way you're going right now to just go this way with it, okay? And I think that will help your condition, you know, in a way where it works. If not, then we would try you with Huat To, where you're asking a question over and over again. But I think that you're sitting well. I mean, considering you're a beginner, relative beginner, you're doing fine. So, and I'm responding to him because he is a beginner to go this way. So the least that you can occupy the mind for will help you. It will actually, when you get up and direct the mind better, so that you're able to keep the mind on whatever you need to do. The concentration thing could do that, but it's going to add more stress where sometimes when we add stress, we add overactive activity of the mind, which the ancient masters were always saying, don't overactivate the mind. No, let it rest. And even the Tibetans, they always talk about resting in Rigpa, right? Resting in this present moment, resting in this awareness. And so all of this is something that we do. So if you just rest it, you know, so when we have this, it's just like watching the breath or counting the breath. There's nothing for you to hang on to. It's just a line, unless you start going, oh my gosh, I remember in the movie Vanishing Point or Thelma and Louise, they had something. And then now you're really going crazy, you know, I see it as a cliff or I see it as a bird or whatever. You know, they're just saying, just stay with the one and do it. So these were ancient methods in terms of doing that. Now, if we use side illumination, then we're actually just back to wall gazing. All we're doing is we're seeing that, but what I'm trying to impart to you is what you're going to counter when you're wall gazing. So you're gonna see, again, these gross sensations and impressions and things. All of these are coming up from the five skandha: form, sensation, perception, volition, and consciousness. You are taking those to be real. You are taking those to be your mind, but in a way in which you are immersed in it, and you are blind to the fact that whatever is so-called looking at it is actually also a projection on that mind. But there is an ability to move off of that, where you've seen all these things there, and then you're there right with them. There's the ability to move back from that and just use the mind's own perception. Now, it's very interesting, although we draw this in this kind of a way, as if it's some kind of a geographical location, it isn't in this way. These are fused together, what they call self-absorption of the mind. The difference in mind, as looking at it, when we function in samsara and we use the mind, we are in part subject to the rules of samsara. So if I said, oh, I'm a Buddha, then how come I can't fly? You know, gotta cut down on the donuts, right? I'm not gonna get there. So we know that about being in this world. That's why they say the bodhisattvas, they have 1 foot in samsara, but 1 foot in mind. So although we're here in samsara, we're able little by little to access the reality of mind itself, so that we are not just looking out like a lantern, and seeing things. The mind has the ability to know what's happening, depending on how realized that mind is, or awakened that mind is, way beyond this room. But at the minimum, it can be in this room. And it can do that at simultaneously talking to you and also talking to individual people. How can you do that? How can you do that? You can't do this with this projection that we call consciousness, but mind can do it. Mind can send a message if it wants. Now, I'm not saying, oh, I have these superhuman skills. That's not the point. The point is thinking outside the box. That's why I always like Michael, because of the quantum mechanics of things. They have this ability to think outside the box of the normal mathematics, normal science. And that's what you do here, is you have to think about outside the box. And so when you're looking at this, there isn't really an eye that's looking at this projection. It's an omnidirectional knowing from within and without there being any within and without anymore, because it just belongs to the body of the mind. This entire thing is just the Dharmakaya. Dharmakaya being the mind ground, what has the ability to produce appearances. Now I'm going beyond beginning, okay? But that part of the knowing mind is not knowing like I'm here and I know this. It's just like it's like who your mother is. And that's what my Dharma brother Goshipa said, you have to know who your mother is, and so he's going around asking everybody about that. And we've had many discussions between us as to who, the mothers, and I remember once with Michael was asking him about that, and he said, oh, like I'm his brother. I go, I'm not your brother, I'm your father. So So sometimes it's that way, but what it is how we see things. And just imagine, you think the Buddha mind would be limited to this kind of a linear observation or duality. When there's no duality, then everything is connected. And that's the thing, when you're using this mind to meditate, it's kind of like a full immersion program where you're going to China and you don't know a bit of Chinese except, ni hao. And so everybody you see, they're dropping the ni hao because that's all you know, but eventually you'll learn because it's a full immersion program. And that's the same thing with meditation. Now, if I just taught you to cross your legs and don't think of anything, what a waste. Honestly, what a waste. And those people that have the ability to have been practicing for a long time, all of a sudden they hear this and bing, it hits. But for the beginners, it can hit right away. It doesn't matter if you can understand it. So if you want, there's plenty of classes you can go to. We'll tell you to cross your legs and pick up the method and not tell you the esoteric. But this is a shortcut. This is the shortcut. If you really want to know, it doesn't matter if you're a beginner. Don't worry about that. Look at him. He's picked it up like so quickly. It's amazing. He's like newly minted, like maybe 2 days ago. But he can get it. But if you sit there, yes, go ahead.
I have a question too. I'm also a beginner to this method. Is there anything in this tradition about like hooking your mind onto like an internal mantra, or would that fall into the category of like too much mental activity?
No, you can do that.
Okay.
You know what a mantra, the definition of a mantra is?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I don't know what the definition would be, but I mean, my background has a lot of mantra in it, and it's like hooking your mind on the sound, vibration, current, whether it be
You're
internally
correct.
or externally.
This is from a Tibetan Rinpoche. He was asked, what's the definition of a mantra? That which protects mind from mind. Contemplate that. That which protects mind from mind. Boom. So you can use the mantra. Why does the mantra work? Because it protects mind from mind. There's a boogeyman coming to get you, Oh my God, it's not. How did it get removed? Because you saw through it, you used the power of the mind to remove it. Where did the boogeyman come from? There you go, you see? 2 days minutes. It is just that way, you see? It just. See, I'm not telling you put down your practices, I'm just telling you, this strengthens your practice. But whatever you've been practicing before, you'll have more faith in that mantra, because it's not you that's saying the mantra. Mind is saying the mantra to protect the mind from mind. Who conjured up the boogeyman? You did. Not you as an individual, but mind. The mind, the individual self doesn't have that kind of power. But the mind has the power to manifest the boogeyman. Mara. But Mara is not different than mind. I mean, the thing in Christianity that I don't understand is that there was Satan, right? But who created Satan? Could only have been one in Christianity theology. It had been God. So it doesn't make sense. But it's all right because it's there when you understand that. And so if you have a belief in God, then you have the power to overcome Satan. Hopefully. Unless they break the poles. Okay, you had a question.
I do. So we're sitting down for meditation or, in samsara. And we're relaxing the mind, relaxing the body. Is there a particular physical tell that you would maybe call out that where there has been that switch to that relaxed state?
I will tell you something that happens sometimes to me, but it doesn't always happen, depending on the type. And understand, to get into samadhi is not the illumination of the mind or enlightenment, but it just means that the mind is stable. There still has to be the illumination. But sometimes when you get it right, to me, it feels like one of these scientific movies, or not scientific, science fiction movies, where there's a quick chill and everything just goes. You sometimes almost hear the sound just, and there's a suspension of what was perceived to be reality at that time into this silent, timeless clarity of the mind. But saying that, then everybody's going to be waiting for the click,
Right. For this meditator, there's a maybe a change in depth of field. So of closeness.
It can happen like that, Alan. And that's okay as long as you don't hold on to it. Okay, if you hold on to it, then you'll begin going like that. And somebody's in the class and they're getting frustrated, you go, and you go, I got it. I heard the click. But the thing is that we don't trust those sensations, but those sensations are indicating that you're moving towards a silencing of the mind. So it's a good sign, as long as you don't try to put a flag there. Okay, you got to just keep moving through. So your question is a good question, because the thing is that you have to let go of all kinds of sensations or experiences to just keep going. All of a sudden you see, okay, there's a bit more to this. There's a change, the idea of this depth of field or however it is in what you see. And it's very interesting. I think I mentioned before that Red Pine was saying it's not in the space between us, but the lack of space. There is no space between us, which makes everything better. This is the intimacy of the mind. So you may have some kind of sensations that as you're no longer this guy here, the big guy, you're just a small one. But there's still some things that are being interpreted via the idea of the ego. It's interesting because it's changing the mindscape, and it's changing it in a way where that little ego can go, wow, that was great. Did you see that? Now we got a big ego again. Because now that ego superimposes onto that experience. This is what we call what? Anybody know?
Unified mind.
Huh?
Unified mind.
Unified mind. So unified mind reaches out and expands and touches everything. And you generally can say, because when people come and they get interviews, they say, oh, everything was so good, the birds were chirping. Birds chirping is number one that people say when they're reaching unified mind. I don't know why, but it's birds chirping, the clouds are there, and so there's these things that are there, because what happens in unified mind is that instead of having a little ego, it superimposes itself over everything, but it's like a layer of cellophane. Okay, so if you look for it, you can't do it. You can't see it at all. Are you there? No. Are you sure you're not there? "No, I'm not here. Everybody left already. This is your true mind." "Oh, I don't know about that. That you have to be careful because it will say, hey, you made it. Congratulations, high five, low five, whatever. And it's going to trick you into thinking that you have achieved some experience. The Shurgama Sutra says these kinds of experiences are good as long as you put them down. But if you carry them, they can enter you into demonic states. Now, it's not demonic states like some boogeyman. What they mean by demonic states is it takes you off of this path that you're going towards realization of mind. And that's what they call demonic states. It's not like, you're going to fall into hell, but you could, literally do that. If you mess up. I knew one monk, that Tibetan monk, and he was able to tell people's fortune. All of a sudden he started being able to tell people's fortune. So he carried a whole entourage of people around him all the time. But he was in a demonic state because he thought that was something great, and all the people did. But in actuality, in their qigong, that's still low level skill. But if say this and this and this and this, you guys would fall because he has such great power. Power is nothing. If the power was there, I wouldn't be doing this instead of qigong. This is the power to be able to quiet the mind completely and to come out of it and then to show others this is a greater skill, a greater purpose in life than just showing parlor tricks to people and then generally charge you for it too. Okay, so anyway, what I wanted to, and your question was a good one. I'm happy that you said it because it's compatible. It makes sense. It brings what you're practicing with your mantra to life, because in this, when you're reciting your mantra, the mantra is coming from mind to affect mind and to protect mind. And so once you understand that, then you understand, hey, if this works for me, it works for others. So you can be this beacon of wisdom. And so you're able to use that skill to calm people down around you. It's not like the Exorcist where you're going around and going, the power of Christ compels you. It's like the holy water. What I'm talking about is truly bringing them to peace. If you found peace with that mantra, if you found that you can talk to other people about that. I would never take you away from your practice. Okay. I'm just trying to show you how vast it is, why it works. That's what's important. It's not you, it's mine that makes it work. So when you see that in that way, that's important. So again, thank you. For any other questions? I haven't even got to lecture yet.
Throughout your talks, the way I've been trying to make sense of it internally for this, and I just wanted to see if this kind of made sense, was like a lot of our experiences are like different levels of abstraction, like the idea of like, oh, we see something and then we have thoughts about it, and then we have thoughts about those thoughts, and it just kind of goes up and kind of builds itself out of those levels of abstraction. And it seems that you're kind of describing mind as a level of no abstraction, of just actual being before we kind of put other things on it. Is that kind of level of no abstraction and no extra on top of it? Is that kind of a state that is a part of what you're describing as it?
Let me present it in a couple of different ways to you that are used by the sutras. I'm running out of gas for this thing. You should see things like a diamond. And if you look in this facet, then you see something else. So all of these things that you were looking at, they're all reflected in this because they're all connected to mind. There's another one which is called Indra's net, where it's a net that has meters on every segment of it, and they all mutually reflect what's in the other mirror. It is this that is mine. These things here, if we see all of these specks and we're saying, I am seeing them, is a duality. And that duality will confuse you. And you can only see the specks one or two at a time, with kind of binary shifting back and forth your attention, but so fast you think you're seeing both of them. But this kind of illusory mind can only hold one object at one time via its perception. The perception of mind holds everything. That's why they say 10,000 thoughts in the present moment. It is able to do that because it is all of those things that are appearing. It understands that they're appearing in the mind ground. They're only part of the diamond or Indra's net. They're only part of that. So they're mutually reflected everywhere. And so I hesitate to say it, but there's a theory in quantum physics about mutual entanglement, where something here could affect something way over here on the other side of the universe. And it is in this way that mind works. We don't understand it. The quantum physicists are just beginning to look at this and understand this, but they've actually been able to prove that. And I'm oversimplifying. I do not have a degree. So, and Michael may be cringing back there, but but what I'm trying to do is show you an example of how it's all connected. It's connected in this way. It's not this linear connection or a tree connection. The only way you could say it's a tree connection is like Indra's net, where it's connected in this way. So this is the way that we view mind. So viewing mind in this way, then when we sit to meditate, it's all there. But we don't try to fabricate. It's impossible for us, inconceivable for us to be able to use this mind via the sentient body or mind. As long as we hold on to an ego or a life and being, it is a projection on mind. It's an obscuration that actually prevents us from being able to make the connection in this way. Okay. So it's kind of interesting. Even though this is very complex, what I'm showing you, I think you're all capable of understanding. Once you understand, because it is, if you understand how mind works, then when you sit down, you're not going to try to invent mind. If you try to invent mind, the best you can get is unified mind. And that's kind of a feeling of like singing Kumbaya all day long, oh, everything's so fine, everything's beautiful, the birds chirping. So you'll see the birds are chirping. Oh, the birds were chirping, and they can hear it. But, well, what were they saying? How do I know? Well, you should know if you're the Buddha, you would know what the bird was talking about. You would know what the non-sentient beings are saying to each other. Get off my head, my Roth would say. So in any case, all right. So that's about as far as I can take you with all of that, which is quite a ways, but this is kind of a little bit of a more unusual class for a beginning class. What this class is, I guess you kind of figured it out by now. It's not really how do I cross my legs and meditate, but what is this all about? Because with that part, then everything else will come clear as to how to use mind to meditate. when we use the mind then, and this is what Master Holmgren was pushing, was that we use the awareness of the mind. So this is important. So when we sit, if you're using your mantra, you have to be aware you're using, the mantra is arising in mind. It's not arising in your consciousness. Consciousness arises in mind. But mind does not arise in consciousness. Okay. That would be like an image of a bird, chirping bird, and saying that chirping bird is not a projection, but it is actually mine, and the blankness there is not real. It doesn't make sense. So you have to see the things as they are. And if you see things in this way, it just opens up to the potentiality of mind. So when you're sitting, you're clear about it, you know, and you, not only that, but what it does is it gives you a choice moment to moment to moment to choose mind or choose ignorance. No, the person cuts you off. What do? You flash your lights, you give them a finger salute, and then they're chasing you, you know, all the way back to wherever you're at with a gun. That's not a very good outcome for that, but that will happen. So everything that we do, we measure it in mind, we measure it in wisdom. Not bad, right? That, you know, the carpenters have a saying that you measure twice and cut once. So they're very, very careful. They're very careful as to how they do that. They don't just measure it, assume it's right, and then cut the board. They want to make sure that they're doing that before the saw blade hits there. So whatever we say, whatever we do, whatever our responses are, they're measured, they're calculated. And so when you do that, you do it in a way that is not necessarily insultive, you know, if you're not pleased with something, but is instructive in terms of that, and showing it from a different viewpoint. And so these are things that help us in terms of knowing how to interact with people. So beginning Chan classes, how to be a good citizen. Number one is put down the ego. You see things omnidirectional. You see in a way that is for the better good of everything. You don't have to be the one that eats the last donut in the box. Okay. You don't have to take it, but if it's offered to you, you know, with sincerity, maybe you will take it, or you'll break it in half and give the half. That's wisdom, right? All of these things are ways to harmonize with the environment. Anything that you encounter is the environment. So you find a way to harmonize without the self. The less you put the self into the equation, the better the response is going to be in what you do. And so you cannot trust the self. It's very problematic. I cannot let Gilbert command the ship. You know, when I do, I mess up. When I do, I suffer. So I tell people, you know, I'm not perfect. I also have a black belt in suffering. All I have to do is just let myself suffer, and I begin to suffer, just like everybody else. When I let go of the self, then I no longer suffer. I may have the same problem there, but I'm not creating a suffering from a viewpoint of an ego. It's just something that has to be solved. All right, it's a mess up, whatever it is, you know. So you just take care of it at that point. But this is something that you see in everyday life, everything that we do. Try to make the choices, try to figure out what's there. You know, when you pack for a trip, do you pack carefully, or do you just start throwing things in at the last moment? Or are you going, I'm going to need this, I'm going to need that, I may need that, or I may not. I didn't need all of these things, but I didn't overpack. So you're careful about what's happening. Everything is mindfulness in this way. This is mindfulness to see how we are. The mindfulness that is now being advanced is so syrupy that it really has lost its use, you know, like, oh, let me open up the door, or let me do this. Those things are natural things, you know, that you do. You don't have to get a badge because you opened up a door for somebody or whatever, you know, but those are all the things, you know, like, oh, metta, metta, metta. That was my main, these guys know the my main thing in terms of people now signing letters with metta, you know, and it's gotten so cartoonish, you know. No, you metta, no, metta to you. No, it isn't in this way. That term metta is a very profound and deep term, incredibly deep term. It comes from the Abhidharma. And if you look at the Abhidharma, this word metta, this loving kindness, is there, and it's an expression of the Buddha mind. This next word that's defined in the Abhidharma is called karuna. Karuna is compassion, and it's defined as that which has an interest in the suffering of others. Sounds like Guanxin Pusa, right? But that's what it is. That is something that's within our mind, but we don't see it that way. It's not something that we develop. It's already there. We just have to use it and use it in the right way. So anyway, let me go back to where we have in the last 30 seconds. Try to move through this very quickly, but what I was saying, I think is helpful. So there's a lot of times I will go through a lecture. Sometimes I'll do a lecture and I won't get off the first line of something or first word sometimes. I mean, there's no need to go further. Here, the question is, what is maintaining awareness of the mind the fundamental basis of nirvana? Or why is maintaining awareness of the mind the fundamental basis of nirvana? We already heard that nirvana is this idea of blowing out the light, meaning letting go of the self. And they're saying, why is this awareness there? And so the answer is the essence of what is called nirvana is serene extinction. And serene extinction is an interesting word because it's the extinction of the grasping of an idea of a personality, ego, or a life and being. I get those three descriptions from the Diamond Sutra. And so if we have anything that has a sense of its own self, it will obscurate the mind. When we see that and we extinguish that, there's a serenity there. In our practice, and then going back to Alan, in terms of his experience in that moment, there's a sublimeness that arises. And this is an element, but it cannot be a contrived element. It is a product of the proper meditation. When we have awareness, the mind is relaxed, it's contemplating the method, it's continuous. In that moment, there comes this sublimeness. The sublimeness comes from extinguishing the idea of the ego in that moment. You don't have to say goodbye to it, you know, bye-bye ego, you know, it was nice knowing you. You just have to let it go. And when you let it go, and letting it go doesn't mean to give it a bum's rush and kick it out. It just means to let it dissipate. On its own understanding mind, we know it's a habitual pattern. So it, just like anything else that's there, will dissipate and no longer have a strong effect on the mind. When there's that extinction, then the mind is sublime. Not bad, right? You want to feel like poop every day, or you want to have the sublimeness there. Not bad. it is unconditioned and pleasant. Again, that's what I'm talking about, this idea of sublimeness. It's unconditioned, it's pleasant. It's like the statues of Guanxin Pusa or statues of some of the Buddhas. They have a sublimeness there. It's like, it's not a laugh, it's not a smirk, it's not a complete smile. It's just, yeah. That's it. You need it? No, don't need anything. You want it? No, don't want anything. It's just there. It is at rest. Not bad. When one's mind is true, false thoughts cease. I cannot go to the next part of this until we understand. What does he say when one's mind is true? What does that mean? We should not go to the next little part of this until we understand that. What is when one's mind is true? Nobody? No? Go ahead.
Well, illuminated, because in illumination, you would see that things are empty, right? So you wouldn't get caught up in things.
Okay. And anyone else?
See your own nature.
No. What is just abiding in the true nature? Yeah, same thing. These are things where we see things. It's true. It's not clinging to phenomena and defining that and creating this idea of this consciousness is our mind. When the mind is just simply mind, it's true. It can see the consciousness and it can even use the consciousness, but in a state of Wu Yen, no thought. It just follows a function. That's when the mind is true. So it's a pretty nice, stabilized mind. Then false thoughts cease. So that saying, causes and condition never fail. If you just stabilize the mind with that's true, that the clear mind, then at that moment, then the false thoughts will no longer come up. Even if a thought came up, one could easily detect that it's a false thought, it's arising. But at this point, when it's completely true, they're actually referring to complete enlightenment. When false thoughts cease, the result is correct mindfulness. So this is the correct mindfulness here. So when those thoughts cease, the mind doesn't have to go, oh, this is a mindfulness thought, oh, you got a little bit of egg on your shirt, let me take it off. It's not that way. It is just correct, it's just correct mindfulness. It sees things, it sees the environment in a state of equipoise. Not bad. Not bad, you don't know that. But then that means like everybody's the same, yeah. But no, I want to see beautiful people. Well, they are beautiful. No, that one's over there, she's ugly. By whose definition? To an alien, maybe, All right. Having correct mindfulness leads to the generation of the wisdom of serene illumination. So if we have this correct mindfulness, so it's the mind freed from all of these vexatious thoughts, then it leads to a generation, okay, and there's always a very strong point of in references of generating. Okay, so what is a generator? It's something that produces some form of energy. So if I had a crank here and I had the things all wired in the right way and I turned it, it would generate electricity. To me, I'm a generator. So I'm here and I'm trying to generate this Dharma power in you and trying to show, you each have a generator, you come equipped with it. We didn't tell you that, but under your cushion, you'll find the generators. You can pull it out now, but we can examine it and you can generate wisdom. Wow. You see, there is a reason why you put your seat on the cushion to meditate, so you can recognize your generator. Now you have a generator. So now you generate wisdom. So every moment you generate wisdom or you generate ignorance. It's your choice. Which one do you want to do? I want to generate ignorance. No. Like, that's like dumb. No, why would you want to do that? Once you know you have a choice, why would you choose ignorance? Why would you choose vexations or discriminations? It doesn't make sense when we do things. No. To some of you, I may be silly. To some of you, I may be profound. I'm just here, and you have to see why I'm here, and trying to generate in you wisdom. So the only way I can do it is by you choosing to use that generator. So and if you generate this wisdom, it's a wisdom of serene illumination. Serene illumination. So why is it serene? Because everything's in a state of equipoise or opika. And so since everything is just even, it's serenely illuminating it and going, this is the way it should be. Calm down, calm down. No, we'll get there. It'll work. Whatever happens, eventually it's all created by mind. Of course, when you're with people and there's somebody dying, you cannot do that and just say, you know, everything's impermanent. I'll see you later. You know, but you choose wisdom as to what to say to them in that moment, so as not to disrupt them. It understands that. Like Shifu, he told me, I caught him before a retreat, and we were passing in the hallway, and I said, Shifu, I understand this. It's like you have a bicycle, and you just stick a spoke in the bicycle, and then the bicycle just immediately stops. And so Shifu says, yeah, that's kind of the way it works. And what was very funny was my interaction with Shifu was I had these conversations with him, supposedly in English, which he didn't really understand. But he was always responding to me eloquently in English. And so then as I was walking away very happy with my example, he says, Gilbert, and he has a very long finger. He used to always point it at me. And he said, Gilbert, but remember, it only stops for you. Again, with the arhat type stuff. He was trying to tell me, you know, it only stops for me. So I have to have the responsibility to show other people that it can stop. All of the idea of the self. So the world can stop. The world stops in the sense that in that part that is no longer creating illusions, harmful illusions. So one knows how to do that. But this is the idea of the serene illumination, because then you kind of, it just calms you down. It enables you to talk to people in this very moment, to say what needs to be said, not what's just on the page, but what needs to be said to this particular audience at this particular moment. It is customized for you. So it says, which in turn means one achieves total comprehension of Buddha nature. So that means you understand how mind works. That's total comprehension, means that you have figured out this is the way mind works. The beginning lesson of how mind works is what, Beyond?
Causes and conditions never fail.
Yeah, pratika samappa, the causes and conditions never fail. So that's the first thing you know. Everything is here because of a cause. Understanding that changes the whole world by living your life in accordance with that realization of how mind works. Okay. And then it says, by comprehending Dharma nature, one achieves nirvana Therefore, maintaining the awareness of the mind is the fundamental basis of nirvana. So when you understand how mind works, then you go, yeah, I'll choose the Buddha every time. Because it's foolish not to choose the Buddha. Choosing the Buddha is just meaning choosing wisdom, moment to moment to moment. You don't, you try not to say bad things about people. You try not to think about bad things. You try not to give dirty looks to people. You are very mindful how that can have like a ripple effect in the future. So then it says, why is maintaining awareness of the mind the essential gateway for entering the path? So what is the path? Well, we'll find out. And it says, the Buddha teaches that even actions as seemingly trivial as raising the fingers of a single hand to draw the image of a Buddha can create merit as great as the Ganges River. So if we drew a Buddha with our finger, it's a great merit. He says, however, that's why I'm not going to trick you guys. He said, however, this is just his way of enticing foolish sentient beings to create superior karmic conditions whereby they'll see the Buddha and become enlightened in the future. So in other words, they're going to conjure up the Buddha because they see, okay, how do I make a Buddha? The Buddha looks like that. So they're making an affinity with the Buddha, but it isn't really a deep experience. So I could do that with you and start it and say, okay, I want you all to sit and just like the Buddha sat, okay, just feel like you're looking like the Buddha. Just sit there. And so you will have affinity somewhere down the line to hear someone else that takes you a little further down the road. But I'd rather tell you how the Buddha mind works instead of creating the idea of this extra special person that you want to draw a picture of. You see the shallowness of that, but to those people that are shallow, then that's something. But you don't have to do that. You can gauge the audience that you have. You can begin to condition their mind to be able to accept what you're saying and take them far beyond what if they tried to do it on their own, they'd be able to. I guarantee you, if you tried to read what I'm reading from, you would not be able to get much of it. You would be able to get it on the basic cable, but it would not go deeper than that. But what I'm doing is taking the time to have you examine this so you can see how this works. Okay, so we're not good. I'm not going to be enticing foolish people. And he says, well, if you wish to achieve Buddhahood quickly in your own body, here it is, right? Now he's telling you the shortcut. Okay, now you can do that, and after 10 kalpas or something, maybe you'll see the Buddha, but it'll still be a picture. Now he's telling you, you want the shortcut. So how many of you want the shortcut? All right, good. I wasn't very convincing. Can you just draw the Buddha instead? All right, I mean, we should want the shortcut. What do you think the shortcut is? You should know by now. It is maintaining awareness of your true mind. This is meditation. So I'm giving you the shortcut. He's telling you this is the shortcut. Everybody says, don't teach so deep. You can't teach deep. And I'm going, I don't want to. How shallow do I want to go to draw a picture of the Buddha and have everybody copy it? This is nonsense. You guys deserve better. I don't come here to Chicago to draw pictures of Buddhas. I come here to awaken you that you have the Buddha mind. That's the shortcut. All you have to do is use it. You have to use it in the right way. the Buddha and Buddhism is not a religion. There is no supreme Buddha, even if we go to the primordial Buddhas, that one you could ask for help from the Buddha or Guanyin Pusa or whatever, but it isn't that there is a supreme being that's there. What mind that you are using now is the Buddha mind. You have it already. So you go home and they say, what did Gilbert say? I have the Buddha mind. Oh, you better not go back there again. But it's true, you have the Buddha mind. You read any sutra, any treatise, and they'll tell you that. Why do we keep it from people? Why do we teach them such elementary, simplistic things that don't get them anywhere? You are capable of understanding this. This very mind is the Buddha mind. This is what's important. That you begin to realize it. How do you realize the Buddha mind?
Maintain awareness of your true mind.
That's it. That's all Holmgren, Master Holmgren was presenting this whole time, is maintaining this awareness. So when you sit to meditate, you just maintain the awareness of the mind. You use the mind to be aware. It's instantly quiet. Truly, it's instantly quiet. You don't use yourself. If the self appears in front of you, just see through it. Like a transparent fish. Just see through it, that it's an appearance. Any sensation, vexations, any cogitation, any thoughts, it is also appears in mind as a projection. All of that is a projection in mind in accordance with causes and conditions. That's how the Buddha mind works. So now you know how the Buddha mind works. You know how to make connection with the Buddha mind. It's easy. It doesn't matter what you're practicing. If you're practicing, look and doing Tibetan, look into Dochen. It's the same. It is just the same as what I'm presenting to you. These two, Chan and Dochen Tibetan practice are the same. Just absolutely incredible. So you just use the mind in this way. It's transferable. No, whatever you want. Just back off from the self. The Buddhas of the past, present, and future are incalculable and infinite in number, and every single one of them achieved Buddhahood by maintaining the awareness of the true mind. Okay, so if you want to realize your mind, you know now this mind that you're using is a Buddha mind, but you go, how do I crack through this? How do I do this? Is by maintaining it moment to moment. It is what works. If you go to a retreat and you do this, one of the ancient masters said, if I am wrong about this, that may I go to a Viki hell, the lowest hell, and every day have my tongue cut out. If in a 7-day retreat, if you maintain your awareness of the true mind continuously. Now, I'm not fudging it and saying, no, when you're brushing your teeth, you don't maintain it, or when you're eating, you don't maintain it. All the time, sleeping and waking, maintain it. You will see your original nature. You will. Because that's all the time it takes to do that. But on the other hand, maintaining it day to day, it will happen too. Pratika Samapada, causes and conditions never fail. If you go to the cushion and just start watching movies, you'll be very good at sitting on the cushion and watching movies or feeling sorry for yourself. Oh, I'm so sorry you guys have leg pain. Oh, that's so bad, right? So you have the leg pain, you forget to be able to practice. But if you maintain the awareness of the true mind, you won't feel your leg pain. It'll still be there, but you will not suffer from it. So therefore, the sutra says, when one fixes the mind in a single location, this is single-minded purpose, There is nothing that cannot be accomplished. Therefore, maintaining awareness of the true mind is the essential gateway of the path. And that we're running out of time. Trying to glean some last little nuggets before we go, but I've got about 2 days worth still. Here. All right. Because this is a beginning meditation class, I have to follow my responsibility. If you're just beginning to practice sitting meditation, then do so according to the Sutra of Contemplation of Amitabha. And so this is the instructions from that. Sit properly with your body erect, closing the eyes and the mouth. Look straight ahead with the mind, visualizing a sun at an appropriate distance away. Maintain this image continuously without stopping. Regulate your breath so it does not sound alternately coarse or fine, as this can make you sit. If you sit in meditation at night, you may experience all kinds of good and bad psychological states. Enter any of the blue, red, yellow, white samadhis. Witness your body producing light, observe physical characteristics of the Tathagata, or experience various other transformations. When you perceive such things, concentrate the mind and do not become attached to them. They are all non-substantial manifestations of false thinking, so forget about them. The sutra says all countries of the 10 direction are non-substantial, like space. Also, the triple realm is an empty apparition that is solely the creation of the individual mind. So the triple realm is the realm of desire, the realm of form, and the realm of no form. And so they're saying that these are just created by the individual mind. When we say created by the individual mind, meaning that from habitual patterns, these things come up. Don't worry if you cannot achieve concentration and do not experience various physical states. Just constantly maintain true awareness of the mind and your actions. There, now he went back to it. All right, we're back going deep again. If you can stop generating false thoughts and illusions of personal possession, and that you have to be sincere in your practice to be seeing things that my thought, my honor, my this, my that, all of these things are arising in the mind, and you see them and you just let them go. Then you will realize that all myriad dharmas are nothing other than the manifestation of your own mind. So everything that appears is just created by the mind, your true mind. The Buddhas only preach extensively using numerous verbal teachings and metaphors because the mental tendencies of sentient beings differ, necessitating a variety of teachings. In actuality, the mind is the basic subject of the 84,000 doctrines. That is what I teach it in this way. He's saying, in actuality, the mind, everything that's taught, and I will defy you to find a sutra that doesn't reflect this, or a treatise that doesn't reflect and go back to mind. We don't teach it. We should teach it because this is a shortcut. This is a shortcut. You have to know how the mind works. And he's saying all of these countless doctrines, sutras, or whatever, they all reflect how does mind work. The ranking of these three vehicles and the definitions of 72 stages and of the wise men. So I didn't finish all the different things they were saying. To be able to discern one's own inherent mind and improve the ability to maintain awareness of it with every moment of thought is equivalent to constantly making pious offerings to the entire Buddhist and through all Buddhas in all directions of space, who is numerous as the sands of the Ganges River. It is equivalent to constantly turning the wheel of the Dharma with every moment of thought. Essentially, what they're saying is that maintaining continually the awareness of the mind is it. So if you understand this, then you can maintain this beginner's mind just simply because you don't have to try to get anything. You already got it. I should have handed you a diploma before you came in, going, you are now bestowed with the Buddha mind. And so then you'd have, well, this effective immediately, right? And before you came in, you already had it. And when you leave, you won't lose it, because even if it's clouded, it's still there. Okay. So this is what I have to impart to you in terms of meditation. I really want you to try to use it to penetrate through the obstructions in the mind. You will find it will work. Okay, well, let you guys take a break now. You can rise.
Want to stand up? Is the Buddha join palms and bow? Bow to the Buddha. More bow to the Buddha. Bow to our teacher. Take your breath. About 10-minute break. And we'll come back for one last for the morning meeting, one Stephen meditation. How long? About 25. And there is a photograph at 11:30. I was going to finish at 10 or 11:25, and then get finish at their middle time 20, and then get and then take that one back and put it out of the okay. All right. Okay.
Hold out my true mind and it's the state.